What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Pick Swap Media YouTube channel. My name is Sean Barnard as usual, and today I'm here to talk about Ja Morant, the high-flying, electric player for the Memphis Grizzlies, and here to tell you why the Grizzlies have a Ja Morant problem. Let's get into it.
Check it out.
Step back, James Harden, right on target. Bang, bang, George Niang to Paul Reed from Tyrese Maxey.
Joel
So Ja Morant is in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. He has now been suspended by the team. Not technically suspended, but is away from the team getting help after flashing the gun on his Instagram live. And there's a lot of problems that this brings on. And really, the biggest thing is at the best case scenario is he's incredibly stupid, and at the worst case scenario, he is actively throwing his career away. And why that is, and there's a whole separate discussion about the gun stuff and everything with it. But he's in the middle of a road trip. So how is that gun there? Did it travel with the team? He's in a nightclub. There's alcohol behind him. Just nothing that's a recipe for success there. And even worse is all these other stories that he's linked to and in the news. He's earlier this year accused of punching a 17-year-old and threatening him with a gun, which he has denied and actively denied. He's accused of pulling up the finish line with 9 deep after his mom got into an argument and asking when the employee got off, stuff like that, in a real threatening manner. He also, in an away game versus the Pacers on January 29th, there was a little skirmish during the game between his dad, T. Morant, and his friend, Devontae Pack, who got into an argument with some Pacers fans, had to be escorted out of there. And following the game, a slow-moving SUV, which Morant was believed to be in, and his friends in the group surely were in, kind of rode by, slow-moving, with a red laser pointing out that is believed to be coming from a gun, part of the Indiana Pacers security guard. So when you're kind of doing this stuff out in the open on Instagram Live like this, it just ruins your benefit of the doubt for this stuff. And he's obviously getting his help away from the team, and they're going to have to figure out what to do with it. But this is a guy who's being pushed as one of the future faces of the league, who has the entire world in front of him on a basketball court, the potential, one of the most electrifying players to just watch on a night-to-night basis. And to be doing this is such a huge concern. And beyond this, there's some concerns on the court for Morant, too. I mean, there's been the talks about the lack of maturity in the locker room in the Grizzlies. Steven Adams apparently had some words talking about how they need to grow up, take it more serious. And looking at like their road record, the Grizzlies are 26-5 at home this year, but just 12-20 on the road. That's kind of been the difference why they haven't been this Western Conference juggernaut in the way that they were last year. The Nuggets have obviously pretty much locked up the 1 seed at this point. Grizzlies still dead set on playoffs, have a good chance, and still are a solid squad, have looked good overall, but they haven't been as dominant as they were last year. And that road record has a lot to do with it. So trying to get a focus there. And looking at just these stats without Morant, there's the concerns on the court too. Looking back at last year, the Grizzlies went 21-6 without Morant on the court last year, and their numbers were just straight up better without him there, which is a concern when you're the superstar of the team. I mean, 14 of the 19 regular season wins without Morant occurred by double digits. Memphis outscored opponents by 376 points in the 27 games without Morant. That's plus 13.9 points per game. In contrast, the 66 games that Morant did play, the Grizzlies combined for just a plus 133 in points, which is just 1.7 more points per game than their opponents. And a lot of that comes with the defense. I mean, Morant is not known for his stellar defense. And when there's these comparisons thrown around the league, guys talked about as poor defenders, guys like Nikola Jokic, James Harden, Trae Young, I would argue Morant is worse than all of these guys for sure. There's a somewhat of a disinterest that kind of comes out with him on that side of the ball, which is somewhat natural for stars, but it just can't bleed in the way that it does with Morant. And just looking at the defensive metrics, and once again, these are last year's statistics. Grizzlies were outscored opponents by 4.1 points per 100 possessions with Morant on the floor, and they outscored opponents by 6.4 points per 100 possessions without Morant. So a bump there. Those were the offensive numbers. But defensively, the Grizzlies gave up more points while Morant was on the floor than any other role player. The Grizzlies gave up 111.1 points per 100 possessions with Morant on the court. In contrast, they gave up just 105.5 points per 100 possessions without Morant on the floor. Morant gave up more the Grizzlies gave up more points while Morant was on the floor than any other player in their rotation impacted. And that's a concern. And I get Morant is such an electrifying talent. He, looking at his averages on the year, 27.1 points, 8.2 assists, which is a career high for him, 6.0 rebounds, just shooting 31.6% from three, 32.4% three-point shooter in his career. There's some real issues that are kind of indicative of that. Like, I don't want to say you obviously want your team to survive without your stars, and the Grizzlies are one of the deepest teams in the NBA. Tyus Jones deserves a ton of credit for this success without him. Probably, I would say, certainly the best backup point guard across the NBA, a guy that is capable of holding down a starting job full time on many other teams. But he does a terrific job with that second unit. He's able to step in when Morant's not there, and that is a major reason for success. But it still kind of points to the question, like, when you look at these superstars around the league, which John Morant is trying to climb into that category and is knocking on the door, all off-court issues aside, by his play, he is in that conversation for a top-tier star. But when you compare him, like, the Denver Nuggets fall off the face of the earth when Nikola Jokic is not on the floor. The Philadelphia 76ers, major step back when Joel Embiid is not playing. Jason Tatum, when he's not there for the Celtics, the game is just not the same. The Grizzlies, it's not that way with John Morant. And to see them actually being better by a lot of metrics without them there should be telling something. And as they kind of operate in their future and look at where they go from here, they probably should not be as tied to John Morant as it once was the case. I get he's this can't miss talent. He's got this electric athleticism. He can do all these amazing things. But if you're having all this success without your top superstar there should be some questions about how necessary is he, or how big of a piece of the puzzle is he to your team. So it'll be interesting to see where they kind of go from here. The first priority is for sure kind of getting him help for the issues that he needs, making sure that he has his life straightened out, getting better with the people he has surrounding him and the choices that he makes off the court. But on the court, there's still some growing that needs to be done as well. And it will be weird to see, when looking at his game specifically, how things fit in. He's always going to be tested with that jump shot. And I get, like, this is the case with a lot of guys, that they kind of are going to force you to beat you from the perimeter until you kind of punish them. Morant's still not there. Like I said, 31.6% from three this year, 32.4% three-point shooter for his career. That's not good enough. And especially for a guy like Morant, that will always be tested, because he has such an elite burst, a unique ability to just get to the rim, blow by guys, that they're going to be extra sagging off, sitting off, making sure that they're backed up. That's going to be continue to be kind of be the make or break for what his ceiling is as a player. And that's just the offensive side of the ball. As I mentioned with the defensive metrics, it's just got to be better. There's got to be more energy. And as this Grizzlies team, the Grizzlies franchise, looks to grow into championship contenders, a lot of this is built around John Morant taking these steps and being that kind of player. And if you want to be a grade A elite franchise player, you got to make sure the team is better when you're on the court. The fact that it hasn't been that case this year, in past years, there needs to be something that changes there. So I do think the Grizzlies should be taking a hard look at that. He did already sign his contract extension after his rookie deal, which is worth 5 years, $193 million. It's kind of worth considering if they should be getting off this contract. If John Morant is a sinking ship, that it's better to part ways with. The Grizzlies are talented enough that they don't necessarily need John Morant to still be a pretty elite team. And if you get a good return for him, if you look to move on and possibly even upgrade for a guy that is that impactful piece and fits in, because there is something to basketball where the pieces fitting together is almost as important as the talent total. And if they can find a guy who maybe doesn't have these negative impacts both off the court and on the defensive end and everything else that we're kind of seeing from John Morant, maybe it does elevate the Grizzlies to that championship contender. Now, this is not to say I will be rooting against John Morant for any means. He's still one of the most electrifying talents. I hope he gets his act completely clean and together, and that he takes some strides forward both on and off the court. Still super young, still has an incredibly bright future, and I do believe that he will overcome a lot of this and find a way to succeed. He's no doubt going to have a successful NBA career, but the Grizzlies have some tough choices for what exactly is the best route for him, and John Morant is not doing himself any favors with the recent action. So we will see what happens with that. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop your comments. Let me know what you think about John Morant exactly. If you think that these off-court concerns are too drastic for the Grizzlies to to kind of have faith in if you think that he's worth it. He's the type of unique talent that is worth sticking it out. But I don't know. I'm interested to see where his path exactly goes from here. Thank you guys, and I'll talk with you next time.